The classic Mercury retrograde trope. Someone from the past is coming back around. This can be absolutely a time that ghosts from our past do resurface in our phones, in our lives, in our dreams, in our minds. But if these people do pop up this week, it's important to know that it is not about them, it is about you. We currently have Mercury retrograde, Saturn retrograde, Neptune retrograde, and this week, Chiron retrograde as well. And retrogrades, contrary to popular belief, does not mean that the sky is falling and that everything gets skewed. Retrogrades are meant to be a time of completing the incomplete, tying up what in our lives feels unfinished, whether that's work projects, creative projects, or matters of the heart with Mercury retrograde in Leo. But it's really a tilt inward. When we talk about retrogrades, it's a flip of direction. So rather than being concerned around the future and the next, it's a time to tie up the past and what's ongoing. Rather than being very focused on the external world, it's time to dive into our internal world. So if there are people who are coming up this week and beyond, it's important to have that moment to reflect and to introspect. What is this person revealing to me about me? And how is this person a mirror that's reflecting parts of myself that I'm being asked to integrate, to heal, and to love more? With the planet of love entering Cancer this week, it does bring up themes of nourishment, of nurturing. It asks, what are we nourishing? Who are we nourishing? And are we nourishing something that does not exist? Are we watering a dead plant, so to speak? Because when Venus enters Cancer, it promptly squares off with Saturn and Neptune in Aries, which can be a bit of a cosmic reality check around where it is that we've been living in fantasy. And the fantasy, the myth, the idealization can show up in many different ways. Some individuals can have this recognition that in this desire to have someone from the past come back around and give that apology that we have been waiting for, and to reconcile with us like we have been waiting for, or to act right like we have been waiting for. In nourishing that vision, we are sitting stuck in the waiting period, in purgatory, so to speak. Watering and nourishing something that is not showing up in terms of our physical lives right now. Saturn and Neptune in Aries is asking you to get impatient and urgent about your life because it's yours. You only get one of them, and it's much too short to be banking on someday or to be banking on one day. And sometimes when we are in that purgatory, we're in that waiting period, and we're watering with our energy, with our thoughts, with our actions, this dream or this ideal around, well, one day they're going to change, and one day it's going to be this, and one day it's going to be this. What we are doing is we are delaying the pain. And sometimes we do that because we don't want to address what within our life we are being asked to heal. And it's a beautiful thing to pour into others. It's a beautiful thing to care for others. But it's knowing that we all have to do our own push-ups in life. With Saturn and Neptune and Aries, we all have to do our own push-ups. And sometimes we overwater something or overnourish something or pour ourselves into something else, hoping that the sheer strength of our care and compassion will help them. And I do believe we are here to help and support one another, but I want you to know this and feel this in your bones this week, that you can only do so much. So if you are enmeshing yourself in somebody else's battle, in somebody else's work, this week's astrology is asking you to get real about that. Because sometimes we want to fix somebody else's problems or pour into somebody else to distract ourselves from our own. We all have our own work. And it's not a very empowering way to live, living in the purgatory, waiting for this person to change or to be fixed or to come back around or whatever purgatory you're in. And in addition to wanting to distract ourselves from our own work, and our own pain. We stay in that purgatory because we don't want to feel the additional pain of letting go of the fantasy. Maybe there's a sunken cost fallacy here around, but I've poured in so much, I've given so much time. And sometimes it's very humbling to recognize that all that waiting was for naught, or this did not turn out as I thought that it was going to do. And so sometimes we just stay in that purgatory because we don't want to feel the pain or the shame or the regret around recognizing that it's time to leave the purgatory altogether. It's time to leave the waiting period. But the difference is when you make that decision is that, yes, it does hurt closing that door and releasing that fantasy and looking reality straight in the face with a Saturn aspect. That's a lot of times what we're asked to do. But the difference is that, yes, it hurts a lot on the other side of that. Your heart breaks, you feel seared, you feel burned. But as time goes by, you get a little bit better. You are radically honest with yourself. And there's forward momentum in that. There's no forward progress in the purgatory. You are not moving forward with your own life, and you are not giving yourself the space to heal. To heal means to feel. It does hurt more before it gets better. And sometimes we stay in that purgatory zone because then we get to be frozen. We don't have to defrost all of the complicated emotions around it. And then we get to deflect accountability around my lack of progress is because this person is not acting right, because this person is not coming back around, or whatever it is that you are projecting on somebody else, whatever need you feel you are projecting on somebody else. It sucks sometimes taking radical accountability and being fully honest about yourself and your own life. But that's exactly what this week's astrology is going to ask all of us to do. And it's not to say that every single person is in this purgatory, is in this holding pattern, is in this waiting period necessarily. For some, it could just be a contemplation around what you are nourishing and if it is nourishing you back. And we have the Sun and Mercury aligning this week in Leo. So this is going to give this celestial spotlight to Mercury Retrograde story. And this week's astrology may have a message. But the question is, are you going to see it clearly? Are you going to allow yourself to look at it clearly? Because here's the thing. People tell on themselves all of the time. Mercury Retrograde in Leo. People show you who it is that they are. Saturn retrograde in Aries. The question is if you allow yourself to see it. Because sometimes that can be heartbreaking to recognize that somebody is not who you built them up to be. Sometimes it's heartbreaking to recognize that a certain amount of time has gone by and you feel like that is time wasted or what have you. And so we stay in the fantasy that we have concocted within ourselves. But if we are bold enough, courageous enough to look at the data in the face, this can be a week in which there is a profound message that is expressed. And again, then Mercury retrograde is like a message that comes from within. You could have an epiphany while you are journaling. You could have a breakthrough while you are at the beach. You could have just a moment of seeing someone clearly and feeling the rose-colored filter that you've been applying to the gaze of this person and seeing it within reality. But with Chiron retrograde in Aries, being radically honest and authentic with ourselves as well as with others is really going to pave the way forward for healing. And so we will dive into this astrology so much more in depth, all of the different ways that it can surface within your life, the financial implications with Venus entering Cancer, squaring off with Saturn and Neptune, the messages that you may receive from people from your past with the Sun aligning with Mercury, the call to get out of the comfort zone, to break a rut with the first quarter moon in Scorpio. We will dive into everything that you need to know about the astrology from July 28th until August 3rd, 2025, exploring this week's sky from both a thematic as well as a day-by-day analysis. Just in case this is your first time stopping by my cosmic corner of the internet, I just want to introduce myself. Hi, my name is Haley Comet. This is my show called Magic Monday, where we talk about the week's cosmos, but particularly honing in on how you can make your life more magical utilizing astrology. It's using the sky as a roadmap and really seeking to empower yourself as the main character of your world, the magician of your universe, to learn from what's coming up, to grab hold of the opportunities that are coming up, and to be gentle with yourself amidst the challenges that are coming up. So if that resonates with you, I would so deeply appreciate if you could like and follow the show wherever it is that you are listening or watching. A reminder, because this is a recent shift, I just want to let you know, if you're used to watching on YouTube, this is available on all podcast streaming platforms now. So if you're ever driving somewhere, falling asleep, just know that you are able to take the magic on the go, so to speak. And your ratings and reviews truly mean the entire world to me. Thank you so much. But before we get into this week's astrology, let's go ahead and take a step inside the Cosmic Café. So today in the Cosmic Café, we have this recess mood beverage. This is the strawberry rose flavor, and it's magnesium and adaptogen infused sparkling water. This was a gift from a client whom I absolutely adore. So sweet. She knows that I love my beverages here in the cosmic corner of the internet. So this says that it's good for my brain, it helps maintain balance, and it creates a moment in time to do with it what you wish. What I wish to do is sip this in the Cosmic Cafe. I would love to know from you all how your Mercury retrograde has been going. How has it been going? Have you been noticing technical difficulties? Have there been more delays? Has there been more chaos? I know I most certainly have been feeling this Mercury retrograde in Leo quite a bit, being Mercury ruled myself. So very grateful for this recess drink, keeping me calm, cool, and collected. As calm, cool, and collected as one could be with Mercury retrograde in Leo. Listen, Leo as an energy, it's a little dramatic, okay? And Leos, I love you. I'm not coming for you, but I feel like Mercury retrograde in Leo has already been showing up in some very big and dramatic ways. And so it's going to be important to take a recess here and there or to take a moment to yourself to really reflect and introspect, because with this fiery energy, sometimes we are wanting to say something. And again, it's not me saying not to express something, especially if it's been on your heart, if it keeps cycling back up and you feel like it's something that you want to get out of your system. I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but I would just encourage you not to speak impulsively or to speak out of a moment of anger, because when it comes to words, there's no takebacks. There's no Uno reverse card. There's no time travel. So there's an ask to be very intentional with what you say and how you say it, and to ensure that it is honest depiction of what is on your heart or what it is that you're really wanting to express, because wires do get crossed with Mercury retrograde. And sometimes when we speak about something in the heat of the moment, we don't always have that moment to pause, to reflect around what part of me felt triggered by that, or what part of me felt like I had to defend myself here, or felt that my ego was threatened here. Like with Mercury retrograde, it's just important to take a beat, as well as see wherever possible that you could just expect there to be some delays, expect there to be some technical difficulties. I know it can be very frustrating, but seeing where it is that you can laugh with what is coming up. Oh, and I would love to know, where are my fellow Mercury retrograde natals at? Who else has natal Mercury retrograde within their birth chart? I would love to have you reveal yourself. How are you doing? Do you typically experience Mercury retrogrades with a little bit more ease than other times of the year? I'm so curious. I think a common misunderstanding when it comes to those who have Mercury retrograde within their birth chart is that they are mentally deficient in some way, or that they are not good communicators. Don't misunderstand me. It does require refinement as it relates to communication, but it's been so fascinating for me to witness how many writers have natal Mercury retrograde within their birth chart, how many newscasters have Mercury retrograde within their birth chart, like people who work with words have Mercury retrograde in their birth chart. And yes, there is a theme within the chart around being very intentional with one's words and really needing to refine it in order to communicate effectively. But it's been fascinating and validating to witness how many brilliant minds have Mercury retrograde within their birth charts, because some of you may know my first astrology reading, I was told that I would always be mentally incapacitated, that I would always be mentally behind everybody else. I reject that notion. Mercury retrograde in Leo is also just this energy around how do I see myself, and can I reclaim the power to write my own story and narrate my own journey? Because I'll be forthright with you, hearing that message at that time of my life, it did fill me with a lot of self-doubt. I was outsourcing the ability to define myself to other people. And I think that's just part of growing up. But I think that was a season of my life in which I did not truly know who I was, which sometimes can make us more vulnerable to have these insidious messages that just weave into our brain and impact how it is that we view ourselves and see ourselves. So if you've ever been told something, whether it was within a reading or a friend of yours told you something, a family member told you something about yourself that keeps pinging in your brain, that feels like truth, Mercury retrograde in Leo, especially with it aligning with the sun, is contemplating, is this true about me? And I can let this go because, again, when it comes to astrology, of course, there's nuances of Mercury retrograde, but that style of delivery of that particular message, it didn't relate to me. It didn't resonate with me. And this is my life. So I'm not going to let somebody else tell me that I'm mentally incapacitated, because I think just as readers, we do have a responsibility to be intentional with our language, because something that people cannot change about themselves is their birth time. So it's important how that information is communicated and expressed, and to know, like in light of Mercury retrograde, once something is said, there's a reverberation there. You never know what people will hold on to and grab hold of, and even how it is that they will define themselves or shape that self-concept. So the encouragement this week is to be intentional with what you share to others, especially in the heat of the moment. You never know how that could really infiltrate somebody and their relationship to how they see themselves, but also reflect if there's certain messages that you've been told, cruel comments, mean comments, snarky remarks about you, you have the full autonomy and power of your own journey to reject that. You do not need to take that on, especially when you know who you are, you know your heart, and you know your soul. And since I got that reading at a time, like I said, I was just like in a delicate season of my life, I took that on. I allowed that to be true. And if I would have continued with those words reverberating in my brain, I most certainly would not be here in the cosmic corner of the internet. I would be like, why would I be on YouTube when I'm just so mentally behind the masses that I could not possibly keep up? Like, it's important to be like, yeah, no, I'm not taking that on. And that comes from that confidence in knowing who it is that you are, because that's what allows us to be unshakable in a sense around, there are lots of things that people can say about me, lots of things that people can say about you, but when you know who it is that you are, it doesn't infiltrate you in the same way. So maybe for some out there, it's not so much getting out of this purgatory, this waiting period, this holding pattern around waiting for someone to come back or give you that apology or act right. Maybe it's getting out of the purgatory that you have been stuck in around believing what you have been told or what other people have made you feel about yourself. This is a week to free yourself from the purgatory. But let's get more insight on this week's astrology by taking it to Vibe Check of the Week. So here on Vibe Check of the Week, we take this week's astrology and every week's astrology to compare it to a real life scenario. You know, it's fun to be in the clouds. We have a Neptune aspect this week. It's fun to get spiritual with it. But we also have a Saturn aspect this week. We got to ground it down within reality. It's great to know that we've got a first quarter moon in Scorpio and we've got sun aligning with Mercury in Leo. But how does that show up in our workplaces, in our lives, in our relationships, in our friendships? Vibe Check of the Week is a hypothetical scenario that helps paint a picture of how it may. And I'm not saying it's going to play out for everybody, but here's what this week's astrology is giving. So this week's Vibe Check feels like the following scenario. We will say that it's a day like any other, and you check Instagram as you tend to do, and you see that there is a follow request in your inbox. And you open it to see that it is a follower request from an old flame who you have not talked to for some time. And for the purpose of the vibe check, we will name this old flame Dario. Don't know where that came from. But you and Dario had this very passionate love affair, is the only way to describe it, that burned with a brightness that both of you knew could not sustain itself or not last or not show up within reality, which added to the mystique. We will say that Dario is from your hometown. And when you were away at college, during like summer breaks, you would come back and the two of you would like spend summertime together. And it was just this passionate time. But then you would have to go back to college and Dario would go back to his real life. So you guys would have so much fun together. But there was always this energy where you both knew it couldn't show up within reality. And even when you graduated college and life went on, whenever you visited for breaks, you would see Dario. But due to you getting in a relationship and Dario getting into a relationship, obviously this connection fizzled out. But there's always part of you that wonders. And just random memories flood back into your mind of your time with Dario around listening to certain music and thinking about the summer nights that the two of you would camp and make campfires. And even sometimes when you smell campfire smoke, it reminds you of Dario and this love affair. And here he is within your inbox years later. Like I said, Mercury retrograde, sometimes people cycle back around where you're like, whoa. And it doesn't always have to be this like intense. Sometimes it's like, oh my God, we took pottery together in high school. Or, oh my God, I saw that you moved back to the city. Want to grab a matcha? Like, it doesn't have to be like, huh. But sometimes, Mercury retrograde in Leo tends to be a little dramatic. Sometimes it does get a little like, And Dario is that vibe. You don't even remember how it ended, but it didn't end particularly well. You know that there were words said in the heat of the moment. It was intense. It was dramatic. And while there's parts of you that very much idealized your time with Dario, there were parts of it that were very toxic because you guys were not official or exclusive. You would see Dario texting other people. Dario would see you texting other people. And again, some of that kind of like jealous energy just kind of like only heightened the flame between the two of you, added to the passion, but it was not particularly healthy. Like you would see a freaking Snapchat notification on his phone, and then you would make sure that he saw a Snapchat notification on your phone. That kind of vibe. Keep in mind, this happened when you were younger. Okay. And so you don't know exactly how it fizzled out, but there were words said and tears shed. And there he is in your inbox. And you have to admit you're curious. In this season of your life, you are currently single. You're assuming that Dario is single as well because he is wanting to follow your page. Again, we don't know his intentions quite yet. But you are very fresh out of a relationship, one that was a lot more real in that you lived together. You thought you were building a future with this person, and you're still very much in the process of healing from that. And so when you receive this message, it feels kind of like cosmically aligned. I mean, it's summertime now, so you're like, can me and Dario rekindle our spark all of these years later? And adding to kind of the mystical undertones of this, you are going to your hometown in a couple of weeks. So you're like, maybe this could be the start of something great. And maybe our timing was just off. And maybe this could be my new direction. And you decide to allow Dario to follow your page. You follow his page. And before you hear from him, you have built up this entire fantasy of you and Dario and running off into the sunset, because dreaming about that is a lot more fun than doing what you have been doing, which is doing the hard, ugly work of healing from your recent relationship, of crying, of letting go, of doing the cord cuttings, of all of that. It's a lot more fun to dream up how you and Dario are going to run away from it all. And so as you and Dario are connecting, you share that you're going to be in town, and he begins to plan this date, and it's going to be just like old times, right? Nostalgia could be in the air with Venus and Cancer. You guys aren't going to go camping, but he is going to take you out to build a campfire, and you guys can stargaze and make s'mores like you guys used to do. And as the date gets closer and closer and closer, you are just fantasizing about this whole life that you are going to live with Dario and this whole love affair that is going to be sparked because again, it's like a welcome distraction, just the reality and the harshness of what it is that you are moving through currently. So it's a lot more fun to put your energy there. And your trip to your hometown arrives. And so as you're on this date with Dario, you have had butterflies for weeks at this point. You have built this up to be this big thing. And you have imagined that Dario has finally gotten his life together. He's finally like cleaned up his act. And step one, you get into the truck and it's filthy and the truck smells bad, but it smells bad, but also familiar because it takes you back to the time of when you knew him then. And while that nostalgia, in a sense, of the campfire and the truck and just the dynamic is familiar, there's also this recognition around, wow, all these years later, and this individual is still the same. Because that's what's also making the date a little awkward, is that the two of you can't relate in exactly the same way. Just because you have evolved, you have grown, you have moved, you've been doing different jobs, you've been traveling a lot, you've been learning different languages, and Dario is still working at the same job that he worked at when you knew him all of those summers ago. And it's not to say that someone's growth is defined by their career progress, but it just seems like there has not been any forward momentum on his end at all. And so it makes relating within this dynamic uncomfortable because you guys don't know how to reignite the same exact dynamic. You know, you never meet the same person twice, truly. Even if some of you are reconciling and reconnecting, I do believe that can happen. Like, I think there are things that are meant to be where maybe in the season of life, the timing really was off and we can pick up again down our path and connect in an entirely new way. But there's also dynamics where it's like, how do we find our footing? How do we connect when we've both evolved so much? We can't regress. And even though there's so much that's similar around, it's the same city and you're the same people allegedly, and it's the same truck and it's the same campfire and the same brand of marshmallows. There's so much similarity, but there's also an energy around it's not the same. And there is this temptation as you feel that disappointment mount and crest within yourself, because not only are you facing the reality of this, it's almost making your heart break all over again in regards to the breakup that you're actively healing from, because this was a distraction. And having to face the reality around, oh, I'm not going to run off into the sunset with Dario and restart this beautiful life together, makes you recognize, oh, I really am on my own. I really cannot bypass what is being asked of me at this particular moment in time. There's absolutely temptation to ignore just your intuition's feeling around, yeah, this doesn't feel quite right. There's a temptation where you're wanting to pick things up where they last left off and see if this could work within reality and ignore the red flags, both within him and as well as how it reminds you of the relationship you just got out of. That temptation is there because the alternative is that you're healing, that you are on your own, and it feels a lot more fun to distract yourself with campfires and with driving around in Dario's truck and what have you, rather than do the messy healing work on your own. And you put so much energy towards dreaming up how you and Dario are going to pick things up, and it was so fun to have someone to flirt with and what have you, that you don't want to release that illusion altogether, but you recognize just that. It's an illusion. There's a reality check energy to this week's astrology with Venus in Cancer squaring Saturn in Aries. Venus in Cancer squaring Neptune in Aries. Again, nurturing or nourishing, pouring into something that is not real. Luckily, within the vibe check, it was only a couple of weeks, right? But sometimes we give so much more of our precious time and energy around nourishing something that is in fantasy. And don't get me wrong. I mean, who are you getting your horoscope from this week? A Pisces. I love a good daydream. I love a good fantasy. And I think we can create beautiful art from that space. We'll say in those 3 weeks of fantasizing about Dario before your date, you wrote all sorts of poetry and very dramatic declarations of love that came from your heart space, which can sometimes be a powerful part about idealizing someone and fantasizing about someone. But you have to acknowledge the reality, especially when you see with clarity, as Dario drives you back in his truck, that this is just a distraction. You could put more of your time there. You could enter into a relationship with him. You could move back to the hometown. Sure, you have free will, certainly. But there's an acknowledgement that in more ways than one, this would be moving backwards rather than moving forwards. And I want to be so clear because we've talked about this energy around progressing and evolving. And like we talk about with retrogrades, it's kind of this energy around backpedaling, not literally moving backwards in time, because it's not how it works, retrospecting, thinking about the past. And sometimes there are temptations where we want to jump back into an old dynamic. We want to reconcile. We want to reconnect. With Chiron retrograde, it could be digging up those wounds of the past even. Like in connecting with Dario, you feel the heartache of yourself when you were 21 years old and seeing that he just got a Snapchat notification from Brittany, heart emoji. Being like, who the hell is Brittany, heart emoji? And yes, we can like giggle about it now because that seems silly, but it's like that was a real heartache that you felt. And sometimes when we do re-jump into something with someone, we think that all of that will cease to exist. Sometimes it does surface. And sometimes people surface by way of dreams, by way of DM requests or what have you, because there's like a 21-year-old version of you or a 16-year-old version of you, whatever, that's asking for healing from that. Because sometimes when we bypass that, we will seek out different dynamics that kind of activate a familiar wound where in your most recent relationship, it wasn't a Snapchat notification with Brittany with a heart emoji, but it was some weird text with their coworker, like a familiar dynamic that digs upon the same wound. And we, as human beings, we want resolution. So sometimes subconsciously we seek out similar dynamics in order to find that resolution. We think that healing will be found where that wound happened. So there's also an energy around re-jumping to the situation with Dario, thinking if he really chooses me this time, that will heal what within me made me feel like I was not good enough, like I was not worthy of being chosen. That was just a summertime secret, and I was secondary to Brittany heart emoji and Amanda peace sign emoji and all of the other Snapchat notifications that I saw. If he chooses me now, I'll heal that. But again, healing is not in Dario's hands, it's in your hands. And we seek out other individuals to outsource that. But all of these retrogrades in Aries is recognizing healing is an inside job. So it's not about jumping back into the same relationship that you were in at 21 years old in order to find that healing, to finally soothe that wound of not being chosen. It's around going back to that 21-year-old version of you, or again, whatever age aligns for you, and saying, I'm choosing you. Nobody else has to choose you because I'm choosing you. You can't ever truly be abandoned because I'm not abandoning you. I've got you. And it's healing that. And so when people cycle up, it's not about them. It's not about Dario. Dario is just a person with a messy truck. It's about you. And if we make it about Dario and jump back into this connection with the same pain tapes and the same insecurity and that same passionate, jealous dynamic, we are bypassing our own healing and the potency that can be found around that. So not everybody is going to hear from their Dario this week necessarily, but there is an ask to see where it is that you are repeating the past. And to see where doing that can keep us stuck. It could put us into purgatory. I'm not saying this is a week in which we all need to make all this huge forward progress, because even within the vibe check, it's just like you got dropped off from the date and it's just like, okay, well, here I am, still in the messiness and the thick of it in terms of my healing from this heartache, from what transpired. And sometimes that's not so glamorous, but doing that is setting us up to progress. I think of retrogrades like an arrow in that we pull it back in order to launch it forward. So sometimes with retrograde energy, we come inward, we reflect, we think about the past and the patterns that we've been in order to expand forward. Because sometimes when we have to feel the pain of something, we feel like we're moving backwards, right? Because it hurts, it sears, it burns, just that empty feeling of being dropped off after that date with Dario and just like feeling just the disappointment and the heartache of what spending time with him brought up about your past dynamic with him, as well as what you're currently going through. Like a lot of times when it comes to the energy of healing, it's like messy and it's raw and we can feel like I'm not progressing. I'm sad. I'm hurt. But this is setting you up for forward progress. It's important to note that Mercury as a planet is not literally moving backwards in the sky. It just appears like this from our vantage point here on Earth. Again, this energy of feeling like we're moving backwards is an illusion. Like sometimes it has to get worse before it gets better, because as you allow yourself to feel and kind of sit in the discomfort, with time, let Mercury station, let things progress onward, it gets a little bit better and it gets a little bit better and it gets a little bit better because you're honest with yourself. You weren't looking for healing from the Darios of the world. The Darios of the world aren't able to give you the healing that you are seeking, especially when it's layered. Venus entering Cancer, this can bring up familial themes. Sometimes we are looking for the feeling of being chosen from a caregiver where we never felt chosen. Sometimes we are looking for the love of somebody who is no longer on this planet. And we are always setting ourselves up for disappointment going into dynamics like that. And so this week's astrology and Mercury retrograde altogether could be illusions that you're moving backwards because you're feeling and because you're healing. There could be an illusion that you are moving forward if you're in a purgatory with someone, waiting for that apology, waiting for them to come back, waiting for them to act right, waiting and waiting and waiting. That can feel like we are moving forward. Like as soon as this happens, then I'm moving forward. But it's just knowing that not all is as it seems. And this week's astrology really asks you to choose yourself. So we'll go ahead and take it into our day-by-day analysis. I just want to let you know that all time zones that I mention are PDT, so please adjust to your local time zone before making a mental note of these energies. And without further ado, let's go ahead and take it into the astrology for Monday, July 28th. Welcome to your horoscope for Monday, July 28th. We start the day at 9:55 a.m. PDT with Venus in Gemini sextile Chiron in Aries, which is a soft, subtle flow of energy that can bring healing, reconciliation, understanding, even validation to certain sticky or spiky parts of ourselves and our journey. Let's unpack this. This could be the sort of energy around learning something or digging into a certain topic that allows you to better understand something that has been a sore spot within your journey. It's kind of like the energy when you read about a certain part of your chart that makes you feel seen, a little vulnerable, a little exposed, but makes you feel very seen. And being able to understand it to a mental level creates this energy of feeling validated for what it is that you have undergone. It does not take the pain away, but it helps you understand it. And sometimes even understanding ways to mitigate that pain, to manage that pain. This could also come up around a conversation that you have with someone that makes you feel less seen, that makes you feel less alone. It could be intaking a certain piece of content online or a certain book or a certain song that hurts a little bit, but in a good way, right? Where it absolutely like resonates or hits us to a deeper level, but it makes us feel less alone. It reminds us that pain is a universal experience and no one is exempt from it, truly. And there can be an energy in subtle ways. It's a sextile. This is a very soft flow of energy. There can be a flow of energy around validating your own pain, not using it as an excuse to stay stuck or to keep yourself from growing and remaining accountable, but being able to validate it around that was a hard experience and that was not easy to go through. Because when we can acknowledge it, when we can look at it with Venus and Gemini, we can learn different strategies to talk about it, to learn tips in order to manage said pain. And it takes us being able to validate that it exists altogether. And this could be an energy where you do talk about something very raw and vulnerable within a certain dynamic. Even if it is a lighthearted conversation, there can be something healing about it in a sense. For example, in the vibe check, when Dario slid into your DMs after you allowed the DM request, there was something healing about the interaction, just being able to chat back and forth, because it's like to a soul level, it's like, I like this person. It's nice that we're able to connect on this chatty conversational vibe. It's not that it's completely undoing all of the pain that's beneath the surface within this dynamic, but it's nice to kind of float on the surface and to be on this kind of chatty, fun and fresh sort of dynamic. Sometimes there could be dynamics of that are healing. This could also be a time where you are putting your hurt into pain. You're creating beauty out of what it is that you have gone through. You're putting it into poetry. Listen, with Mercury retrograde in Leo, if something is hurting, if something is coming up, put it into your art, truly. Write about it, sing about it, write poetry about it, create about it. Art is such a powerful process of alchemy, truly. I was going to say I used to be a writer. I guess I'm still a writer, although I don't write that much. I used to write these incredibly dramatic short stories, and it was all very like, like in my early 20s, just around like dating experiences and love and whatnot. And I was drawn to writing about it because it did take a lot of the pain away. It was like the only thing that could actually was writing about it. And it was a prolific time because, again, it was like the Band-Aid that soothed the aching of my heart. And the unfortunate part, I guess, about healing and not getting high on the drug of love is that I don't write anymore because I'm not like, oh my God, like I still journal, but I don't write the short stories. I don't alchemize those sort of things into art. I'm good on that. I saw what I needed to see. I had the experiences I needed. I have some stories to tell. I had some stories to write, and I do miss expressing myself in that way. That was my first love, was writing. If you were to ask me when I was younger what I was going to do when I was older, it was always to be an author, to be a writer. And maybe Mercury retrograde in Leo is nudging me to get back into it. Not in this like, way, but maybe there's like a new form of expressing myself via writing that can unfold. Maybe the creative process doesn't always need to be born out of pain, but I will say for me personally, it definitely was. And so if you are in the process of moving through something and you do express yourself via music, via dance, via writing, via poetry, it could just be for you. It's just creating through it. There's a reason why we hear songs and we're like, ooh, that hurts, but I feel so validated. I feel so seen, because it's like we could feel alone in these experiences that we have. But when we connect with certain art, we see like we're not alone. And that could be such a powerful thing to do if you are creative, to create art that makes people feel more seen, that makes them feel less alone, as well as being able to intake the art that makes you know that you're not alone in regards to your pain or what it is that you are moving through. On Monday, we have a Virgo moon for most of the day, which does feel very productive. So I don't feel like we're just going to be with our typewriter crying and writing all sorts of pages. I mean, maybe someone out there. And go off, queen. Let me read it once it's done. You know, we can alchemize into all sorts of things beyond just art. Like, I would still consider myself a creative person. I used to alchemize the pain of my love affairs into writing short stories, and now I put it into filming. I put it into creating. I put it into wanting to help other individuals with their healing journey, and it does help with my own, honestly. And yes, it looks different in this season of my life. It's definitely not the early 20s, just like, and love, It's definitely not that, but we all have pain. We all have things that we are moving through. And so there's an ask to alchemize it into purpose, whatever that may look like for you. You know, in that season of my life, I would run to my typewriter. I would run to my computer when I was hurting. Now I run to my camera. It just helps. There's something about creativity. There's something about expressing yourself. There's something about pouring ourselves into what means something to us that just supports the healing process, truly. And with the energy of the Virgo moon, it aligns with Mars in Virgo. So again, allow whatever you're moving through, whatever feels sticky or hard, or whatever Mercury retrograde is cycling in, allow it to be poured into your service around wanting to help other humans, either by way of your art, by way of your creative expression, but also maybe you're going through something and you still got to show up and be the best barista possible. And it's just showing up with presence, like looking people in the eye. I think to unlock the fullest capacity of our heart, it does need to break, truly, because our first heartache or heartbreak on whichever level, whether that was just the pain of abandonment when you were very young, or the pang of disappointment that somebody was not who they were, or that fairy tales were not real, it's like those are the experiences that rip us out of fantasy around how things should be, how they ought to be, and it opens us up into facing the reality of how things are, which again can be incredibly heartbreaking. But from that space of realness, from that space of authenticity, it levels us to other humans, where we look other people within the eye. We're present for their pain because we understand what it feels like. We strive to make a difference. We strive to help others because we know, because that rawness of that experience opened us up to this new level of empathy. And again, sometimes as part of the healing journey, our hearts are closed and we're in self-preservation mode. But I would just say with the Virgo moon aligning with Mars and Virgo, seeing where it is that you can serve, seeing where it is that you can help, where you can brighten someone else's day, where it is that you can look someone within the eyes, where it is that you can be present with other individuals, where it is that you can take whatever is making you mad and put it into your work, into your business, and whatever it is that you do, and let the haters be your motivators. Truly, with the energy of the Virgo moon aligning with Mars and Virgo and us being in Mercury retrograde in Leo, if someone is talking badly about you, somebody's gossiping about you, or someone is copying you, or whatever it is, it's like alchemize the frustration from that and put it into being the best that you can be. If you are moving through some sort of heartache or a best friend breakup or something like this, again, this is not for the long term, but sometimes for the short term, it's helpful to be like, well, wait until I glow up, until I 10x my business, and until I do this. And it should not be about them. Again, with Mercury retrograde, it's about you, what's happening within here. But sometimes we can utilize the experiences of what's happening out here to alchemize into motivation for our own lives. And so if that's what it takes to have you get up and clock in and get on your Zoom and show up for your business as being like, wait until my ex-bestie sees me shine, or wait until my ex can't even get an autograph from me. Like, whatever gets you there, whatever motivation gets you there, doesn't matter, so long as you're showing up there. And again, it's knowing within your heart of hearts, it's not really about them. But the beautiful thing about doing that is that you get the benefits of the great workout. You get the benefits of having that post that you shot go viral. You get the benefits of that paycheck because you clocked in. It's an energy on Monday to show up. And yeah, let's be real, with the Virgo moon aligning with Mars, you could have some pet peeves. Your coworker could be driving you crazy, being so annoying. Somebody made a mistake at work that just seems so glaringly obvious that you're like, how did you miss that detail? Like, hello, what is happening in here? You know, moon on Mars, we could feel a little feisty, a little snarky. You could be so bothered by how your spouse is chewing at this particular moment. Like, Virgo moon is very detail oriented and things could just be getting under your skin. And again, the Virgo moon goes on to square Venus and Gemini around 6 p.m. So again, the annoyances, the criticism, the nitpicking, getting in the way of connection or bonding, where it's like, we're a team at work, but you made this huge mistake and I'm super irritated. Or like, we're a team within our marriage, but dear God, why do you chew like that? Like, little details could just be getting under your skin, so to speak. And then the moon is void until it enters Libra at 10:43 p.m. and peace is relatively restored. At this point in time, there's a call for balance, for peace, for harmonizing our world. And I do want to highlight, we are in the waxing crescent moon phase. There's most certainly caveats to what I'm going to say, but I will say that waxing crescent moon is typically helpful for things that we are wanting to grow or to put energy towards. Keep in mind, Mercury is retrograde. So this is not my Comet cosign that you need to launch all the things and sign all the things. Definitely be cautious and really think before you speak or before you act altogether. But just know that there can be an energy around things growing, taking shape. On Tuesday, July 29th, the moon is in Libra all day long, making some very fascinating aspects, and quite a few aspects at that. So first stop on the Libra moon tour, because typical Libra moon energy, just conversing with all of the other planets in the solar system, just the social butterfly that it is. But first up on the Libra moon tour, trines Uranus and Gemini shortly after midnight. So some will be asleep for this. Some may feel this build Monday night. But what I will say about this energy is that Libra moon wants to work together. And with the trine to Uranus and Gemini, being open to unique facets of what people bring to the table. And again, giving people permission to be as they are. With the Venus building to square Neptune, not as we fantasize them to be, not as we projected them to be, but as they are. It doesn't feel good on either side to put someone on a pedestal and to be let down, or to be the one who's put on a pedestal and then let someone else down just by you being your own self. It's like, it's not a good energy. It's not fun and fresh on either side of it. And the Libra moon trine Uranus and Gemini is really allowing innovation, new ideas, brainstorming, whether that is at work or within your contacts or even just within your friendships or things like that. You know, at the end of it, we all have a responsibility to be true to ourselves and to do what is best for us. And sometimes that does entail letting people down. And again, I think we should all strive to be good to one another, to follow through in our commitments, to help one another out. But it's just knowing that you did not come into this lifetime making this covenant and this promise to be what everybody else expected you to be and wanted you to be and would be convenient for you to be. You came here to be yourself. And as you give yourself and grant yourself the space to be authentically you, you equally need to extend that out to other people as well, even if you're the one who feels a little let down at times. And then next up, Libra moon converses with Neptune and Saturn. And this is an opposition, which is essentially the furthest that two planets can be from one another, is opposing each other. And so oppositions emphasize differences. And so the Libra moon wants closeness and camaraderie and working together in harmony and peace, but there's glaring reality checks that we have to address here. Maybe we've been giving somebody the benefit of the doubt and we have to get real around it. You know, maybe you're a manager or your boss and you've been trying to give somebody benefit of the doubt around, they'll come around, and you want harmony within the workplace. And it's like, I really have to do this. I really have to put you on this performance improvement plan. Or there just could be something where it's like, I want peace, but not at the expense of ignoring this glaringly obvious thing. And maybe we have been ignoring it, with the energy of Neptune. Maybe there's been some rose-colored glasses and we got to face it. Then Libra moon makes a harmonious aspect to Pluto. So this is the energy around how powerful it is to plug into people and connections that regenerate our energy stores, that build us up, that empower us. Just in a silly example, it's kind of like reconnecting with Dario, having someone to flirt with and DM with. Life has a little bit of a luster when you got a crush. Let's be real. And again, it's like we can use that, just the thrill of excitement and just like the tension. We can use all of that and put it into art, put it into our businesses, put it into all of these things. It's not saying that you need to have a crush. It's not saying your whole life should be centered around relationships, but sometimes you do get a little bit of a power surge from having a little bit of a crush within your life, whether it's like a gym crush that you've never talked to, but you go extra hard in your workouts because they're there, or just someone on your gram who watches your stories and it motivates you to post cuter stories. Sometimes it's harmless to have something that's within fantasy. Sometimes it can actually be helpful for our own motivation. And I think part of the check-in this week, the cosmic check-in, is around where are my fantasies actively siphoning from me? Because fantasies can add to our real life. We could put that into our art and we could feel like we are looking out at life with a little bit more romance. Everything seems more beautiful. Everything seems more exciting. That can be possible. And so there could be a check-in around how that's showing up for you. And Venus is at the anaretic degree of Gemini. Listen, if there are two signs that are absolutely on another level when it comes to flirting, it is Gemini and Libra. So there just could be an energy where you're just wanting to flirt today. You just might want a little bit of attention. You might just like randomly want to make the waiter at lunch fall in love with you or the barista fall in love with you. Listen, I don't think it's any harm to be romanced by life and to be open to the idea of romance, to be charmed by life as you are being charming. And that theme of wanting validation or attention could be alive with the Libra moon then going on to sextile the Sun and Mercury, who are building to conjoin later on this week in Leo. And so again, some of you could want to spin the block on an old connection just because you're bored and you want someone to flirt with or want a little attention or something like this. Or you could entertain someone from the past because it's nice to feel wanted. It's nice to feel admired. And there's no harm in it. I would just say check in on your motivations. Within the vibe check, it was very much a distraction, deflection from their healing work. And it's not to say you can't heal while getting to know someone, but it's just important to be very intentional with what you are seeking from connection, to be very honest and upfront about that. To others, yes, but also to yourself. Like, am I just bored? Do I just want some attention? Do I just want some validation? And outside of that, there could be an energy around wanting to work together, to create, to collaborate, to beautify, something like this. the Libra moon will square off with Jupiter in Cancer shortly before 9 p.m. And this could be an energy around going overboard, going to excess. On Wednesday, July 30th, Chiron stations retrograde in Aries at 7:42 a.m. PDT. So let's unpack this. I want to highlight firstly that when a planet or a comet, in this case, is changing directions, again, it's an illusion. Like, planets don't actually move backwards in the sky. It just appears as though they are from our vantage point here on Earth. And B, it's important to know that there is like an elusive quality to this week's astrology that we will continue to unpack. But also, when it comes to retrogrades, we feel it strongly when it's switching directions. Because when it comes to outer planets, comets, in Chiron's case, it's not always so directly personal within our lives. It can represent collective shifts and things like this. But we do tend to feel it pretty strongly when it is switching directions. So there just could be like a Chiron part to your week. Again, we had Venus sextile Chiron this week, so some of this could be healing. Again, while the message that was received on this date with Dario was not exactly the light bulb moment that you wanted, it was healing in a sense to be like, okay, now I can fully let this illusion go. I can fully let this fantasy go about reigniting this with Dario because now I see that there's nothing there. Disappointment, yes, but conducive for healing, also yes. Like there could be themes where something sucks, but it gives you closure. Something sucks, but it helps you understand it. Something sucks, but there's a spirit of acceptance. Like when Chiron energy is active, yes, there can be triggers and wounds and just a spotlight to where it is that we are hurting. There can also be potent insights that are coming from being very radically honest about that. There's a lot around this astrology where it's important to be honest. If there was like astrology to actively strive to not be shady, it's right now. We've got Mercury retrograde in Leo, which is the sign of the sun. The sun illuminates things that we might have wanted to keep in the darkness, wanted to keep a secret. We have Saturn retrograde in Aries, so consequences and a need to be very radically accountable with self. This is astrology to be honest with others, yes, but also be honest with yourself because things are coming to light and consequences of where we cut corners or cheated, they could be coming up at this time. And I don't say that to scare anyone. There's just like a cosmic nudge to just be accountable, to really look at your stuff because no one's perfect. And so while there could be messy scandals and things coming out with Mercury retrograde in Leo, it's important to know that no one's perfect. And like with Saturn retrograde in Aries, it's knowing we all have our own work. We all have our own messes to clean up. You know, it could be entertaining to distract ourselves with what other people are going through and what other people are doing. And sometimes we do so with good intentions. You know, Venus enters Cancer today. So wanting to nourish, wanting to help, wanting to pour in. But at the end of the day, we all have to do our own push-ups. And yes, a lot of times our desire to help comes from a good place. But sometimes it is just bypassing our own stuff where it's like, I don't want to look at my stuff. So I'd much rather busy myself trying to fix you or help you or heal you because then I don't have to do my stuff. Focus on your stuff. And again, with Chiron retrograde, it's a tilt inward. So what am I seeking outside of me? And where am I trying to fill a void within me? Because we do that sometimes with fantasizing about our crush or fantasizing about an ex coming back or fantasizing about whatever it is. It's easier to put our energy there rather than to look at the hard stuff and to really ask ourselves, what within me is seeking integration? What within me is seeking healing? And it's easy to distract ourselves with crushes and with fantasy and with this or that, but it's recognizing like what within me is aching to be acknowledged, aching to be recognized and validated. Again, with that sextile to Venus and Gemini earlier this week. And it's just knowing that sometimes we seek out certain relationships in an effort to pour into wounds that existed before we even knew this person. Again, when I keep repeating this theme around, it's not about them, it's about you. I'm not saying this in like an egotistical, narcissistic way that we are the center of the universe or anything like that, but it's really just this reminder that sometimes certain dynamics really cut into us or really stick with us, or we have a harder time extricating ourselves from them, not because of who they are, but because of what we've made them mean. Dario is just a dude from your hometown who can't keep his truck clean. But the reason that situation then and the situation even now is challenging to remove yourself from is because you built him up to be this powerful symbol of being chosen, of being worthy, of being beautiful. If he chose to spend time with you rather than Jessica heart emoji and Amanda peace sign emoji, that means that you're good. That means that you're valuable. And that might be something that was a wound that existed far before you met Dario, that just this connection inflamed. And that's what sometimes makes us grab hold and sometimes even get ourselves really ensnared into trauma bonds, because there's this energy of seeking healing in something that is actively digging into the same wound. The wound has nothing to do with Dario necessarily. I mean, he definitely added to it, but it already existed, which is why there's this strong pull to this dynamic. Even if you recognize then and you recognize now, it's not good for me. And you really got to look inward. With all of this astrology, I know it's hard, but you really got to look inward. What part of me is choosing this? And it's knowing Dario, even if he proposes to you in front of the campfire and deletes all of the other people from his phone and fully chooses you, it's not going to heal it. But again, it's an illusion. We feel like if I finally get that apology, if I finally get that closure, if they finally act right, then I'll be healed. No, it's an inside job. And what that does is just ensnares us deeper into the dynamic. And then we get what we want. And we're like, wait, I thought this is where healing was. I thought this is where integration was. I thought this is where self-love was. Did I get lost? And with Chiron retrograde, it is coming inward. It's reflecting. It's taking accountability and agency of your healing journey, knowing that how you've been inflicted, how you've been let down, how you have been abandoned, how you've been hurt is not your fault, but how it is that you proceed forward is your responsibility. How can I alchemize this pain into purpose? Also in your horoscope today, Venus will enter Cancer shortly before 9 p.m. So let's unpack this, because yes, it gets off to a little bit of a rocky start with these squares, but it's going to get really good. Okay, Venus in Cancer is going to get really good. The two benefics are meeting up in early August. So you just sit tight because this transit is going to get good. It just gets off on a little bit of like a ouch note. Again, sometimes it's got to hurt a little more in order to get better. But let's explore this transit outside of its first aspects to Saturn and Neptune. Venus is around what we value. It's around what we love. It's around what we consider as beautiful. And even though it's Leo season now, so we're wanting to be seen and be visible and create and express ourselves and play and have fun, with Venus in Cancer, there can be a pull of nostalgia. There can be a pull around your home environment, wanting to beautify your home environment can be alive with this energy. Wanting to honor past summer traditions, getting the Slurpee, the campfire, even with your relationship now, if you're in one, like contemplating the dates you used to do when you first fell in love, or what your summers looked like when you first fell in love, where of course life looks different now, and there's an element where it's not the same two people on either side of the campfire, but sometimes it's nice to reflect on those past seasons that you've had with this person that you love. Or even if it's someone that you're newly dating, like having those things that feel nostalgic, bring you back to a simpler time, could be really a love language at this time. With Venus and Gemini, we wanted to connect, we wanted to collaborate. With Venus and Cancer, we're wanting to invest in the relationships that feel like home, that feel familiar. And again, particularly this week with the aspects that Venus in Cancer is making, it's important to know that familiar does not equate healthy. Sometimes we find ourselves feeling very drawn to dynamics that feel very safe for our nervous system because it's what we've known before. And that does not equate healthiness. That does not equate growth. So it's also important to really check in around what we have deemed as normal, or what we have grown accustomed to feeling like love is, especially if it was familial or ancestral. You know, Venus in Cancer does bring about these themes. But there's really an energy around wanting to pour into who and what you love. You know, just to plug it, I did a podcast episode all about Jupiter in Cancer and how to consciously activate its magic and meaning within your world. You can check that out below. But I shared there that with Jupiter in Cancer, I have been in this energy around just being really cringy. And I don't care. I don't care if I'm cringy. I don't care if I'm corny. I've just been wanting to so pour into my friendships and those that I love. I've been wanting to tell everybody how much I love them. I've been wanting to really prioritize nourishing and nurturing the connections within my life. You know, connections do take watering. They do take nourishment. We have to make that decision to pour our energy there, to send a voice memo to our friend or to invite someone over for dinner. And with Venus in Cancer, it's worth it to pour into others, to express how we feel or how much we love them, right? If you can make someone feel loved and admired and appreciated, it's worth feeling a little corny or feeling a little cringy. And Venus in Cancer asks us, what are we watering? And again, watering the connections that really you hold dear within your life. And checking yourself if you are watering a dead plant. With Venus in Cancer building to square off with Saturn and Neptune in Aries. If you are watering something that is not pouring back into you, if you are watering a fantasy that is existing in the ethers, the space of one day, the space of someday, your energy is so precious and it's so powerful to nourish and to nurture and to love on other individuals. And sometimes when we live in this energy of fantasy, we are not present for ways that love is alive within our day to day, like right now, because love shows up in so many different ways. It's not just romantic, it's platonic. And sometimes if we are so busy in our own world, just dream about Dario, we are not nourishing the friendships within our life or our family members, or we're watering this thing that does not exist. And your energy is precious. You deserve to give it to things that also pour into you. And so there can just be an acknowledgement around where you're not feeling poured into, where you're not being prioritized, where you're not feeling valued. We'll talk about that on Friday when these Venus aspects exact. But with Venus in Cancer, pour into what and who within your life feels like home. Nourish your inner landscape, beautify your home environment, your sanctuary, honor past traditions and the shared history that you have with those that you adore. On Thursday, July 31st, I want to start by saying that at 4:41 p.m. PDT, the Sun and Mercury align in Leo. You've got mail, so to speak. I don't know why that came in my head, but you've got mail. There could be significant emails that come in at this time, a significant text message, a DM request. There could be some sort of message that comes up. And it's not to necessarily say that it's a pleasant message, but it is a message that brings illumination. Like I said about Mercury retrograde and the sign of the sun illuminates, and it illuminates everything, the good and the bad. You can't hide when you are in the sun. You know, when you're in a bikini at the beach, you're fully exposed, it's all there. And there can be a freedom in that, right? And so there could be something that's being spotlighted at this time. And so there's an energy of visibility. And so something could be brought to light. And not all of it may be great news. Like this could even show up around some sort of letter in the mail that you need to replenish your escrow account, that it's like running low somehow. There could be an email reply that you weren't the right fit for some sort of opportunity. You can receive a text from a suitor that they are moving or they're getting back with their ex or something like this. There just could be a message that comes through. But a message that comes through is not always a message that is truly received. That's what's important to know about this energy, is that the sun can illuminate, but it can also blind. And there's an ask around how willing we are to look at something as it is. Because with Venus building to square Neptune, sometimes we can convince ourselves around, okay, it wasn't the fit for this opportunity, but they're going to circle back in 2 weeks' time. Or if I just ignore this letter that I need to pay more into my escrow account, then it doesn't exist, right? Like sometimes just because we read something or hear something does not necessarily mean that we are ready to intake it. Sometimes we just want to push it away. And that's also important to know in reference to your truth and what it is that you express and who it is that you are. Is you can speak what's on your heart. You could be straightforward with who it is that you are, and people will still be committed to misunderstanding you, which is why it's been my emphasis, this Mercury retrograde, to if you do need to say something, if something's on your heart, if you do want to express something, to do it for you. Because oftentimes we can feel let down. It's like, if I were to only hear that this person is sorry for hurting me, then this wound will cease to exist. But sometimes when you say, like, you did this, and they don't respond in the way that we wanted them to, we could stay stuck in this waiting period. Again, waiting for permission to heal or permission to move forward. And only you can do that with Chiron retrograde, Mercury retrograde. And not all of us are going to have this message come through in our inboxes or in our mailboxes or what have you. Some of us, it could just be seeing something clearly. This is the moment of the vibe check, yes, around getting the DM, but it can also be that moment when you're in the truck with Dario and you're like, yeah, no. Seeing something with clarity. And again, you could talk yourself out of that if you wanted to. Like, you're seeing clearly, this is not a fit. This is not what's going to help me genuinely progress in terms of what it is that I want, like genuinely. But you can ignore that. You could build this person up. You can stay in Delulu land. Just because a message comes through does not mean that we necessarily hear it or answer it. Just because you express to somebody how much they hurt you does not mean that they will necessarily understand the magnitude of what transpired. And, you know, like I've been talking about with Mercury retrograde, I do feel like people who are coming back around could be coming back around from the space around their pride was wounded, right? Dario just got out of a breakup and it's like, I want some validation. And that doesn't feel good to be used for validation. And sometimes message comes through our intuition. But again, just because the message comes in doesn't mean that we are going to really internalize it or really integrate it. Again, sometimes we can be blinded by the sun. It's bringing all of this illumination. There's something that's being brought to light, but sometimes we, in the brightness of it all, skew our eyes and look like this and try to look at it differently because we don't want to acknowledge it. We don't want to hear it. We don't want to receive it, whether it's us or somebody else. So yes, people could be expressing what's on their heart today. You might get somebody who's telling you that they were hurt by something that you did or that they're sorry for what they did to you. Again, there could be messages that come through of something that's on individuals' hearts. Or if you are dreaming of someone or reflecting on someone, you can see what you needed to learn from that particular dynamic. There's something bittersweet about this week's astrology with Chiron stationing retrograde the day prior around, it sucks that we couldn't work it out. It sucks that you hurt me like this, but it's okay. I'm taking the message. I'm taking the lesson. You know, with Mercury retrograde in Leo, it's also knowing who it is that you are, reclaiming the narrative to define who it is that you are, as well as knowing some individuals will paint you as a villain in their story. And I do think we should take accountability. We should take ownership if we have inflicted harm around other people, where she's like, paint me as the villain if it makes you feel better. Like, some people, rather than owning up to their part in things, it's easier to cast you as a villain. It's easier to make you the bad guy. And again, at the end of the day, you can explain until you're out of words to say. And that doesn't mean that people will hear you. Some people will be like, la, 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 la. I've already decided that you're an evil person and you're bad and you did this and that. At a certain point, you have to just find that peace around knowing your heart and knowing your soul and knowing your intentions and striving to rectify the dynamic in the elements that you're able to, while also knowing that, again, when we are avoiding accountability or healing within, we will look for either distractions outside of us or someone to blame outside of us. And this asks for radical honesty and accountability around, we're not perfect. I'm sure there's ways that you showed up in the dynamic that were not ideal. Does it make you an evil person? No. You know your heart. You know your intentions. And so it's not wasting your energy trying to explain yourself to someone who is committed to misunderstanding you. They may have casted you as the villain in their story, but cast them as a lesson in yours. Take the lesson. That's where we find ourselves repeating in same dynamics and doing the same familiar dance with someone when we're not learning the lesson. And sometimes when we finally take the lesson, we stop being attracted to the same dynamic or to the same people because we've got it. The message was delivered, but received. Receive the message with this Mercury alignment, whatever it may be. And so outside of that, I do want to highlight that the Libra moon opposes Chiron in Aries in the morning time. So there is a bit of a spirit of reconciliation and review of past hurts. And again, it's not giving reconciliation around we're going to jump back into a dynamic. There just could be an energy around some sort of closure that is received. And again, only you can give yourself closure is what I want to highlight. Even if you have a conversation and you hash things out, sometimes there's just lingering questions that only you can answer. And there just could be a spirit of that this week. The moon then enters Scorpio at 10:25 a.m., going on to trine Venus in Cancer midday as well. Which, yes, the moon is currently in its fall. And so there could be intense emotions. And with the trine to Venus in Cancer, wanting to pour into the dynamics where there is deep intimacy, where we do feel safe. And again, you could be really pouring into intimate dynamics within your life currently, but there can also be dynamics, big or small, around just because there's shared history does not mean that there needs to be a shared future. Like, that's important to check in on because sometimes with the energy of Scorpio moon, it's like, but they know my secrets. They've seen my ugliest parts. They've seen my shadow self. And it's like, yeah, that doesn't necessarily mean it's like a healthy dynamic. And you can love someone from a distance. It's just what I want to say here. But it's also honoring the connections where you really feel safe to be as you are around, regardless of what you are going through, to be able to nourish the bond. There also could be this energy just in a very realistic, practical level as you navigate your Thursday around feeling things deeply, feeling things intensely, and really prioritizing the connections that make you feel seen, that make you feel safe, whether that's with your coworkers, with your friendships, what have you. This could even be just like talk trash with your coworkers at work and like fighting a camaraderie in that. The Scorpio moon does square Pluto around 3:20 p.m. So there could be a little bit of chaos, a lot going on. Again, with the sun's alignment to Mercury, there sometimes is like a message that comes out. So there could be something that comes out at work around, oh, we never got that project that you submitted, or you forgot this particular thing that brings you into the space of chaos. Could also be an energy here. Again, just because a message was sent does not mean that it was delivered and received. Those are all different things. And with Mercury retrograde, sometimes we send email that gets lost in someone's inboxes. Sometimes we send an apology text that the individual is not able to intake. Sometimes we say that someone hurt us and they are not in a space where they're able to take accountability for that. Like, this could show up in like typical Mercury retrograde ways where, yes, double check. Did you receive this email? Did you receive this proposal? Because sometimes things really do get lost in the ethers, but also knowing that you could speak what's on your heart. You could strive to be as clear as possible, but it does not mean that it will be received in exactly how you intend it. And with the Scorpio moon squaring Pluto, again, whether some work mistake was brought up or there's something chaotic happening, you could just feel quite intense on Thursday. It could be busy, a lot happening, and a lot happening within as well. And also, just with Mercury retrograde, things could feel like they're going wrong. There's technical difficulties. You're breaking things. You're dropping things. Chaos is abounding. Remember to nourish yourself in more ways than just one with Venus now in Cancer. Like, sometimes when things are very chaotic or hectic, we forget to eat. I had to pause to go grab myself a bar because I suddenly realized that I was famished. The moon is a luminary that is associated with nourishment. It's in its fall, squaring Pluto. So don't be self-destructive. Remember to nourish yourself, prioritize what your body is asking for. And P.S., this is Nature's Bakery. I don't know where this came from, but it reminds me of my youth. It reminds me of the Nutri-Grain bars. Venus in Cancer could also be a nudge to like eat the nostalgic foods that you used to when you were younger, where yes, maybe there's some sugary cereals, and honestly this and Nutri-Grain bars probably are not that healthy, but sometimes it's nice to just pour into a prior version of self with those nostalgic foods that we used to eat. On Friday, August 1st, today, Venus Day at that, is when the two Venus aspects that we have been discussing this week exact. So Venus in Cancer squares off with Saturn in Aries at 6:34 a.m. PDT. And Venus in Cancer squares off with Neptune in Aries around 1:49 p.m. PDT. So firstly, with Venus square Saturn, there can be an energy around not feeling particularly loved at this moment, not feeling particularly valued, not feeling particularly beautiful. Saturn brings restriction. And again, if we have idealized someone or pedalized someone in this week's example, Dario, to be the dictator of whether or not we have worth or are beautiful, we are setting ourselves up to feel not enough, to feel disappointed. And it's knowing that no one has the ability to decide your agency, your autonomy, your worth besides you. And sometimes we pour into something and pour into something and pour into something, thinking as soon as it pours into me back, as soon as it chooses me back, then I'll feel beautiful and valued and admired and all of things, and maybe temporarily. But when we outsource our own value, when we tie it, hinge it to other people's approval or validation, it keeps us hungry for more validation, more admiration, more feeling of being chosen. And other ways that this could surface, I do want you to be mindful about what you are mothering at this time, with Venus and Cancer. Of course, when you care about anyone, you don't want them to experience any pain, any hardship, any challenge, but that is where we grow. The pain, the hardship, the challenge is where we grow. It's where we are self-sufficient. And so Venus in Cancer squaring Saturn in Aries is also asking where we are enabling certain dynamics, where we are picking up the slack and thus stealing this person's opportunity to take it upon themselves to pick up said slack. Because sometimes we can overwater a plant, right? We can over-nourish something. We can enmesh ourselves within something when there is certain work that's our own to do. And sometimes we can love someone while also having certain boundaries around that is your work. And I'm not going to get involved because I would be doing your soul a disservice by trying to take it on myself. And I'm also doing my soul a disservice by pouring into you at the expense of myself. But with Venus in Cancer squaring Saturn, some of you could have like certain boundaries around, I love you and I want to pour into this dynamic, but this is a certain boundary that I'm enforcing here, or there is a limit to my love. And that doesn't need to show up around like cutting people off. Sometimes it's just an energy where somebody is just emotionally dumping on you. And there's just this line around, okay, I'm going to read these texts when I am off of work, or somebody's coming to you with a certain problem and they want you to take it on yourself and empathize with them deeply. And sometimes it's energy around, maybe you should do this. Well, also having this emotional barrier around that's not mine to take on. And I can support you. I can nourish our connection while also recognizing that is not mine. And I know we've been talking about that quite a bit, but it bears repeating, especially with the Venus squaring Neptune, where sometimes we take on the psychic load, the spiritual load of what someone else is going through. And sometimes we can use that to make excuses for the person around, well, they're not coming back around because they're entangled in some sort of karmic dynamic and they need to like free themselves, or they are treating me like this because of what they went through. And sure, is there potentially truth in that? Sure, maybe, whatever. But it's knowing that that's not yours to take on. And sometimes we do all of this work intuitively and energetically trying to solve the Rubik's Cube of why someone's showing up as they are and why they're treating us as they are, that we forget the glaringly obvious sign that they are treating us the way that they are. And it's not our work to try to psychoanalyze and figure out and analyze their childhood around why they're treating us as they are. Sometimes that is the message of how they're treating you. And sure, are there reasons why they are treating you that way? Yes, but that's not yours to figure out. And it's not a good usage of your time and energy to try to figure that out, or try to fix this person or save this person, or to allow mistreatment of you because of what this person is going through. You've gone through stuff. You didn't treat people like that. Sometimes we make way too many excuses for people. And even beyond the ones that we know, we'll invent new ones. Neptune is a planet that's around fantasy and idealization. So it's like, well, maybe it's this, maybe it's that. Maybe it's the way that they are not showing up right now in the way that you deserve. Saturn and Neptune in Aries. It's time to get impatient about your life and what you want out of it. If you are nourishing a fantasy that feels like it'll never come to pass around this person changing or coming back or whatever, it's time to get impatient about your life and recognize that you are in the waiting period, thinking my life will start when this happens. My healing will start when this happens. I'm not saying you need to rush the process. Like, divine timing is at play. Absolutely. With Jupiter in Cancer. But if you've been waiting to live until this person acts right, until this person comes around, it is your life. And love is not enough. It's not. Venus in Cancer, no matter how much you love someone, no matter how much you pour into someone, it does not change somebody else's ability to receive it. The insidious part is that sometimes we can anchor our own value to people's ability to receive us or show up for us, where sometimes we can feel very let down. We can feel very disappointed. For example, this dynamic with Dario. You built it up to be this thing, and now it's a crash landing back to reality. That's kind of the vibe with Friday. You could have built something up within your mind, and you have to see it as it is. Got all excited about this job interview, and they give you a measly pay offer. Got all excited about this new date, and this is what it is. Got all excited that there was positive improvement with this friendship, and then they reveal the same pattern. There just could be an energy around feeling let down. And yes, feeling let down by the situation, but also how we built it up within ourselves. But then we add insult to injury by adding on these other layers around, well, if I was more beautiful, then Dario would be able to show up for me. If I was more enjoyable as a friend, this friend would stop flaking on me. If I was more this, and it makes us feel not good enough. It makes us feel not beautiful enough, not valuable enough, not worthy enough. How ridiculous it would be to leave that interaction with Dario and to leave that experience feeling not good enough when it's really this energy around, is he able to meet me there? Truly, why am I internalizing and feeling not good enough when I should really be asking, does this person have the capacity to meet me as I am? Venus does bring about financial themes. So again, there could be some sort of bait and switch. You get all excited by these glowing reviews of an item, and then you deal with the harsh reality of what it actually is. You get excited about a new financial prospect, and then dealing with the harsh reality. You get an offer on the house that you're selling, and then they undercut you. There just could be an energy around feeling a little let down from the reality of it. And it's knowing, for example, if it's a job interview and you're excited about it, you start fantasizing and idealizing about working here and how it's going to be so great. And then they offer you something that feels measly and beneath you. The invitation is not to leave that job interview feeling like that is an accurate assumption of your worth and of your value. It's to know that that's what they could provide. Should they provide more? Absolutely. But sometimes there are budgets, and it's really not something that we have to take personally. And that also shows up in terms of people's emotional availability budget, where sometimes they just don't have it to give. And then we internalize it around, if I was more this or more that, then they would be able to pour into it. Sometimes it's just not there, and you don't need to take it personally. But we could be taking a little personally on Friday, is what I want to say. And again, this would not be my encouragement to do something with your appearance, would not be my ideal astrology to get plastic surgery done or to get a new haircut done. Because again, reality and the idea of how you thought it was going to look could be quite different. So you thought you were going to be rocking it with a bob, and now you're leaving and you just feel like the berries and cream commercial guy. Sometimes reality just pales in comparison, where you dreamed up this new bob, you dreamed up this new job opportunity, you dreamed up this romantic entanglement with Dario, and then just life is a little womp. That's life. But while life can, of course, pale in reality, because it's life, there's lifey parts of it, it's knowing that life is more fulfilling than fantasy. We can fantasize and make things all dreamy, but you deserve things that show up for you within your real life. You deserve people who show up for you in terms of your physical reality. You deserve love and connection and friendships that show up for your physical reality, that nourish you within your physical reality. Venus in Cancer is going to bring our awareness to what we are nourishing, and if it is symbiotic in a sense. And you deserve that to show up now. That's where I'm saying get impatient, get urgent, because if you're waiting on someday, one day, days are going by. Saturn aspects snap our awareness to time. And so it's really recognizing, how long am I going to wait to live, or wait to be prioritized, or wait to be valued? And there could be a bit of a crisis point or a choice point today. And again, it's not always so dramatic, right? These vibe checks are very dramatized versions of how the astrology could play out. But I want to let you know that at 5:41 a.m., we have the first quarter moon in Scorpio. This is a check-in point to last week's Leo new moon, next week's Aquarius full moon. And first quarter moons are associated with taking a risk or overcoming a challenge, overcoming a hurdle. And Scorpio brings about these themes of transformation, evolution, getting out of our comfort zone, where it can feel scary to choose something new. It could feel scary to break a pattern. It could feel scary to evolve. We could think something is better than nothing, even if that thing is not nourishing you, choosing you whatsoever. We can think, if I leave this purgatory, then I'll be on my own. But it's knowing you need space to create. You need space to invite in. And so sometimes we think, okay, I'll just jump into this situation with Dario. I'll still heal and I'll still be open to the love of my life to come in. And that's like not how it works. A lot of times the universe will not give us the new until we fully close out the old. And so for some, that Mercury alignment with the sun, this first quarter moon in Scorpio, is this energy around really letting go, like really releasing something, taking the lesson, taking the closure and letting go and feeling that thrilling, exhilarating energy of like space that opens up within your world, which could be scary. And we talked about last week how sometimes space could be triggering or space could be a little scary. But if you really want to evolve, if you really want to grow, sometimes it's necessary. Space to heal, space to reflect, space to close out a chapter. I remember back in my early 20 days, I had this individual within my life where we could not let each other go. It was messy. We were just like in and out of each other's lives. Then like every so often I would come back, they would come back. It's like, it was like clockwork. And again, sometimes we can get hooked on the drug of being on a roller coaster with someone without recognizing that we're on a roller coaster. It feels like we're having movement. There's ups and downs. It feels like we're going somewhere, but then the coaster comes back to the docking point where you boarded the roller coaster and you realize, oh, we're in the same place, aren't we? We're doing the same dance. We're on the same roller coaster and it feels exciting. There's ups and downs. And getting off the roller coaster, it's scary. It's like, what is outside of the roller coaster? How will I live without these ups and downs? It's hard when you are hooked to that sort of dynamic with someone. And we did that for years. And, you know, when I was entangled in that and on that roller coaster, there was part of me that was like, well, you know, when the love of my life shows up, like technically I am single throughout all of this. Technically we were both still single, even though we were like ensnared into this dynamic that neither of us could let go of. I was like, well, I am single. So if the love of my life shows up, I am available to be able to start a relationship with them. But I actually did not enter a significant relationship until that dynamic was slammed shut. And was that scary? Like, absolutely. Like, even though there were ups and downs and there was not any forward progress, it was my normal being on that roller coaster. And I was scared of being on my own, honestly. But it wasn't until I was in my own energy that I was able to pull in a very healthy, loving, nourishing relationship because I had space to receive it. So there could be a choice point of some sort. Do I take the risk or do I stay here? Do I let go or do I keep going? Like there just could be acknowledgements of this. And it could be in reflection to yesterday's message because the Scorpio moon, yes, squares off with the Leo sun, but also squares off with Mercury and Leo since happening right after that conjunction. And things could be a little intense. They could be a little dramatic. The Scorpio moon does trine Jupiter in Cancer at 10:25 a.m. PDT. So it's also honoring the data of how something makes you feel. Sometimes how we feel or how it makes our intuition feel tells us everything, but we don't always listen to it. Sometimes we can be so in our head around, gosh, I have this weird feeling. Like sometimes we delay our chapter in a particular season because we're not listening or validating our inner guidance, our inner compass. So honor what it is that you're feeling, pour into what is sacred and important to you, stay rooted within reality. A little fantasy is fine. Again, with Venus squaring Saturn, life could feel lifey. You get a bill that it's like, ugh, it doesn't feel like there's time to have fun or to enjoy yourself. You feel like everything you put on your body looks weird and bad. And, you know, with the energy of Venus squaring Neptune, there could be a desire to escape. Wanting to drink wine to escape, wanting to distract ourselves in movies and in art. And again, a dash of Neptune is harmless. Just be mindful not to drown into the Neptune seas because it can be very destabilizing and very disillusioning. On Saturday, August 2nd, the moon continues on in Scorpio for most of the day, going on to sextile Mars, who it's answering to from a traditional perspective, around 6:07 PDT. And a great thing about Scorpio energy is that it does draw us back to what really matters, like beneath the surface, around, I have this one life to live. Do I want to spend my life on a roller coaster? over and over and over again, or I have this one life to live. Do I want to keep prioritizing this dynamic that feels like it's not prioritizing me? And with the energy of Scorpio moon, it's like dropping into who really matters, what really matters. And yes, sometimes Scorpio energy can bring about, morbid themes. But again, there is a theme around like being urgent about your own life. We think we have time, but there's an energy around time is of the essence. We have this one life to live. Live it big. Live life as the main character. With the Leo sun. And you could get random spurts of inspiration to tackle different projects or to move your body in different ways with the moon sextile Mars. You could feel more passionate. You could feel more inclined to be intimate or to prioritize that within your world. You could want to like seduce yourself. Scorpio moon, sextile Mars, do the things that make you feel just sexy and alluring and, doing it for yourself. Like ultimately feeling sexy and attractive and alluring, it is a vibration. I know Venus separating from its square to Saturn, there could just be an energy around not feeling very beautiful. But the energy of Scorpio moon is like tapping into that vibration of magnetism and alluring in your unique way and doing the things that bring you into that vibration because it's a vibe. Like, I know we tend to think that it's individuals who fit a particular societal picture, but it's an energy, it's a frequency. Where can you align yourself to that? And not for the purpose of other people, but for the purpose of yourself. You deserve to live life big. You deserve to live life passionately. You deserve to live life intensely and powerfully. And so what's an action you can take today to get yourself in alignment with that vibration? The moon will then enter Sagittarius at 11 p.m. So we've got a fire sun and a fire moon. And so there can be a desire to spread your wings, to explore, to travel, to see new sights, to see new adventures. That's the gift of Sagittarius coming right after Scorpio, is that yes, sometimes we do that choice point around, do I put my claw marks in more or do I let go? Do I surrender? Do I face the unknown or do I stay on the same roller coaster? But Sagittarius falls right after Scorpio. After that crisis point, after that transformation comes space to explore, to roam, to be open to new places and to new experiences. So just knowing if the Scorpio moon was tough on you, if it got a little, dramatic or existential or like, what's the point to life? With the moon in Sagittarius, prioritizing the things that remind you there's a big, wide world out there. There are more people that you have not met who will love you. The world is bigger than just Dario. The world is bigger than just your hometown. So it's remembering to believe in the possibility of expansion and adventure. On Sunday, August 3rd, the Sagittarius moon is being quite extroverted as well, talking to all sorts of planets. Let's get into it. I want to start by saying shortly after midnight, the Sagittarius moon will oppose Uranus and Gemini. This could have created sleep disturbances in your Saturday night, Sunday morning energy, or just feeling like restless or just kind of like electric or buzzy or nervous can sometimes be a Uranian energy. There could also be a desire to try something new, to do something new. The Sagittarius moon then trines Saturn and Neptune, again, balancing fantasy with reality. Parts of the trip will not be very Pinteresty, but reality is rich. It's alive. It's vital. And that's not something that can be summarized on a Pinterest board. So we do this with trips. We do this with experiences where, yes, not everything is going to be picture perfect, but it's real. And there's value in something being real. The Sagittarius moon then sextiles Pluto in Aquarius at 3:46 a.m. PDT. Some trips and adventures will be good. Some will not be good, but all of them will change you and transform you in different ways. That's why traveling is so powerful, because it changes you. And not all of us are obviously jet setting today. This could be an energy around learning something new, going someplace new. But once you've been expanded, you cannot return to your prior mold. And that's why sometimes we keep ourselves in that purgatory if we're waiting on this dynamic to work out, this connection to work out, this person to come back, because we're scared if I change and evolve and grow, I won't be able to meet this person on this level. So sometimes we subconsciously hold ourselves back from new experiences that will be beneficial for our soul space in this effort of wanting to be able to relate in that familiar way. And I'm of the belief that what is truly for you will never pass you. If someone is meant to be within your life, you guys will come together and be able to connect in a novel way. Never wait on anyone. Even if it's the love of your life, they will evolve in similar ways as you do. If you choose yourself, you will attract people and opportunities that will also choose you. Stop choosing people who are not choosing you. Choose yourself and choose growth, really, with the energy of the Sagittarius moon sextile Pluto. and recognize where you're holding yourself back from growth, waiting and waiting and waiting. Life is too short to wait. Spread your wings, fly, adventure. Even if that's like in a micro way today, trying a new cafe, trying a new adventure. And then on Sunday, there is a theme of honesty. We've got the Sagittarius moon trining Mercury in Leo and trining Sun in Leo. This can absolutely be cheerleading other people, breathing life into them, giving compliments, hyping people up. This can also be an energy around loving someone enough to be honest with them, also loving yourself enough to be honest with you. Honesty is an act of love, even if it is not what we want to hear. Lies can be comforting, but it does so much more of a disservice at the end. And of course, we should strive to be intentional with our words. We should strive to speak from our heart space and code it with love, but it is not loving to lie to others and to ourselves. So my loves, that is our week. The Magic Monday mantra of the week is I choose myself. It is not selfish to choose yourself. As you choose you, things that are meant to be within your life will also choose you as well. Opportunities and people and spaces and places will choose you once you decide that you are worthy of choosing yourself. Because regardless of how much you care, we're in Leo season. This is the heart space. We love. This is a loving, generous energy. But you cannot overwater a plant. Even too much sun will burn out a plant, right? And we do need to have limits around how much we pour into and how much we give of ourselves, especially if it's creating a lack within you. And it's lonely sometimes to choose yourself. It's hard sometimes to choose ourselves. It's hard sometimes to look at our work and the healing that we have to do. But that is the path that will lead to your freedom. That's the only way out of the labyrinth, is to choose yourself, is to decide that you are on a roller coaster that you would like off, to decide that you are sick of living your life within purgatory, neither here nor there, to decide that you are not going to wait to live, waiting on somebody else to act right, to choose yourself. And I'm not saying everybody needs to leave their mans this week or break up with their friends. I'm not saying that, but I'm saying if there is a dynamic where it's like, it would be all too easy for me to sacrifice what I need in order to give you what you need, may this be the week that you choose yourself. And rather than allowing people's pop-ups into your dreams and into your mind, into your phone around what does this person need and what does this person want from me, come back into what do I want from this person? What am I learning from this person? Center yourself. It is not selfish. The sun is in rulership. You are the sun of your own solar system. So it is not selfish to choose yourself. And the more that you choose yourself, the more that you attract things to you that are truly aligned for you and aligned for your path. And that's what I want for each and every one of you. So my loves, our emoji of the week is going to be the fire, as a shout out to you and Dario's campfire dates and the romance that never was. Or use the word flame within a sentence. That's just a little game that we play here in the cosmic corner of the internet to let me know that you made it to the end. I know these forecasts are quite long, but they are always given with love. And I hope that you can feel that on your end, whether you're watching via video or via my voice. But I'll see you again, same time, same place. And until then, drink lots of water and